Hello, I'm Phil, and this is my channel Cinephil, named by MJ from Reading This Life, so thanks MJ. Today I'd like to talk about one of my favourite directors. I'm going to talk about books and films on this channel. One of my favourite directors of all time is Samuel Fuller. He was born in 1912 in New York. By the age of 9 he was selling newspapers on the street. By the age of 12 he was a copy boy, so basically taking the stories from the journalists and running them as printers so they could print them. And one of the most important moments of his life, he said, was like seeing the print machines printing, the boom, the sound of the machines. By the age of 17 he was a crime reporter, reporting on violent crime in New York for the Daily Graphic. And in World War II he fought in North Africa, in Sicily. He was part of the D-Day landings and fought right through the Battle of the Bulge to Germany and Falkenau, where he was one of the first people to basically film a concentration camp at Falkenau, and that footage still exists on 16mm. But anyway, I was first introduced to him in 1996 when I came across a listing in a TV magazine in the UK called Radio Times, and there was a documentary listed on Channel 4 with, what caught my attention was, with Quentin Tarantino and Tim Robbins about Sam, and it was called The Typewriter, the Movie, Camera and the Rifle, and it was about Sam's life. And basically by the early 90s he'd left Hollywood, moved to Paris and brought his family up there. Well, by the mid-80s actually, because Hollywood shunned him. But he was one of the first true independent directors. I mean, of a tabloid style. He didn't mess about. His films were topical. His films were direct. And I think one of his quotes was, "Film is a battleground. Life, emotion." So a lot of his camera moves were to make an emotional impact. Directors like Scorsese, obviously I've said Tarantino, hold him in high regard because there was no bullshit with Sam. There was no backdoor. He made a lot of films, but was basically ostracised by Hollywood by the end of the 60s. I just thought I'd show you some of my collection. So that is his autobiography, which was published posthumously in 2002. Sam died in 96, and he wrote every word he wrote himself, and it's one of the best autobiographies I've ever read about filmmaking, about films, about war, about life. So yeah, I'd really recommend this book. It's a fantastic story. He wrote several novels, one which was published and is referenced in The Big Red One, the film that he made towards the end of his career about his war experiences, called The Dark Page. But he wrote several novels during his lifetime. Hard Case Crime published one, or republished one, in 2008, I think. He wrote the novelisation of his own war experiences, The Big Red One. He wrote several other novels, but they're really hard to get hold of, really hard. I picked up this on eBay a few weeks ago, which is from 1970, which is a wee little book, wee little size. But it's basically every one of his films up till 1970, with loads of stills. And my Sam Fuller collection. So quick view of each one. Park Row, he financed himself produced himself, directed himself, wrote himself, and it's his love letter to journalism, basically. It's one of his most autobiographical films. 1952. Didn't make a penny. Kind of ruined him. Nobody went and saw it. But it's a great, great film. I'd put it up there with Citizen King about films about journalism. The two Criterions that are out. Yes, Criterion have got some full of films. Are The Naked Kiss, which is melodramatic. Is about a prostitute who runs away to a small town, and yeah, it's high drama. Shock Corridor, which is a masterwork about a journalist who goes undercover in a insane asylum to get a story, and ends up, well, just watch it. China Gate, which cost a lot of money. This was £30 to import from Australia, and it was one of the only ones I didn't have on disc, which is his Korean War film, starring Nat King Cole, no less. White Dog, which basically ended his career in Hollywood, about a dog that's trained to attack black people, but it's absolutely about anti-racism. It's about not being racist. It's about, yeah, you can tell why Hollywood didn't like it, because it like Sam, it pushed a lot of buttons that people didn't want pushed. House of Bamboo, which he filmed in Japan on location in 1955. Robert Ryan's great, isn't he? There's loads of great character actors. McCoy's in it from Star Trek. Can't remember his name off the top of my head, obviously. But yeah, great ending, great shootout at the ending. And pretty influential, I would say. Hell and High Water, which is a Cold War adventure movie, I suppose, with Richard Widmark. Filmed in, what was he filmed in? Technoscope? No, that isn't right. Anyway, they basically challenged him to make a widescreen movie in a submarine, so he did. Pick Up on South Street, which is a key noir film about a pickpocket who picks up a secret by accident. It's quite political, and in fact I think J. Edgar Hoover had to have a conversation with Sam Fuller about it, saying, "Are you a communist?" Whereas Richard Widmark says in the film, "Are you waving the flag at me?" Fixed Bayonets, which is a Korean War film, but it's absolutely full of Sam's war experiences. You can tell the man was at war. 40 Guns, which is one of his earlier films, 1957. Great Western, absolutely fantastically shot. It's got one of the earliest continual tracking shots, and an opening you have to see to be believed. The Indicator box set of early Sam Fuller films, which is partly, I think the first two discs are screenplays he wrote like in the 30s before he went to war, and it's got The Crimson Kimono and Underworld USA, which are both fantastic. Crimson Kimono comments on race, and looks at Japanese culture in LA in the 50s. Underworld USA is just a fantastic revenge movie about a boy whose dad was killed by a gangster, and then he becomes a gangster himself, and yeah, just watch it. The Big Red One, which is Sam's War. That's his war experiences. And if you're wondering why I'm wearing this weird jacket, it's a GI jacket, replica jacket, and it's my absolute geekdom coming out because I've got the Big Red One patch on, and I've got Sam's battalion badge there, 16th Infantry, 16th Division. So yeah, I'll probably walk about with this on and people go, what's that? And it's only me knows. Medals Marauders, which was a World War II film about a real battle in the Philippines. It was quite low budget, but you can tell Sam, it's Sam's direction totally. He experienced war, so it's absolutely about war. Verboten, which is about post-war Germany. So it's his experiences in post-war Germany, featuring the sheriff from The Dukes of Hazzard. What was he called? James Best. He's the lead actor. It kind of ends abruptly, but it's quite interesting to say that, like, it's a story about the resurgence of Nazism after World War II in post-war Germany, and how the Americans taken over, well, not taken over, but like living in Germany and trying to control Germany after World War II. It's a really good film. But yeah, so just to say again, read this book, The Third Face, his autobiography, published in 2002 after he died. His family found the manuscript. It's quite weighty, but it's an absolute cracking autobiography of a man's life through journalism, war, filmmaking, rejection, critical reappraisal in the 90s. He's just a great man, and he's one of my favourite directors. So anyway, that's my first video. Thank you.